Hello, hello, and welcome to that Second Gen Life with Samhar. I'm your host, Samhar Raya. If you are a second generationer, a child of immigrants, a diaspora leader, change maker, however you identify, this space is for you. This podcast is more than just storytelling. It's about strategy, identity, leadership, community, finding yourself in this beautiful diasporic journey we're all going through. We'll talk about everything from navigating the workforce as a diaspora professional to the role that you can play in making an impact from where you are, locally or around the world. But most importantly, we're going to remind you that you are powerful, that you belong, and that your job here is to create the spaces you wish existed. Welcome back to That Second Gen Life with Samhar. I'm your host, Samhar Araya, and today we're diving into something that is foundational to everything we discuss here, the diaspora experience. You've probably heard the word diaspora used in different ways, but what does it really mean? And who's a part of a diaspora? Why does this matter to you? Whether you identify as a member of a diaspora or not, why is this word popping up everywhere? Today, I'm going to break it all down, and by the end of this episode, you'll not only have a clear understanding of the diaspora, but how you fit into it and why this knowledge is so powerful. Let me start by saying I generally don't like to start conversations about definitions. But when it comes to issues around the diaspora, this is usually where most of us get stuck. Am I a part of the diaspora or not? Is this including me? And you know what? Diasporas might mean something to you, and it might mean something completely different to someone else. So I'd like to just set the scene, lay the foundation, to help everyone see where they fit in this really incredible network, an ecosystem that you really are a part of no matter where you sit in the world or in your own community. So at the Diaspora Academy, we have taken a really conscious effort to use the term diaspora in as most inclusive and holistic way as possible. And for that, we look to definitions that have been offered by other institutions that work on this space. And most notably, we have come to rely on the definition that was first introduced by the United Nations. The agency that is focused on migration is called the International Organization for Migration, or IOM. And back in 2013, IOM held its first inaugural conference solely focused on understanding the role of diasporas in development. Because up until then, diaspora communities had been all over the world, historically across centuries, giving, investing, engaging, traveling back and forth, but there was really a lack of alignment from countries around the world. So the UN decided to hold this conference, and really it was with heads, governments, ministers that have mandates that include migrant communities, diasporas, and migration as a whole. And what was really interesting about this conference was it allowed the international community to more or less come to terms with what does diaspora mean for us as member states. It didn't include perspectives of civil society, I think, as much. And that was really because this was the first of its kind. And over the years, IOM has really grown to start hosting convenings and conferences around the question of diasporas with civil society, with private sector, with governments, with anyone and everyone who cares about this space. But back in 2013, the definition that they came up with, I think, still stands most relevant today. Before I share it, I want to say that definitions are fluid, and it's important to not get too stuck on semantics, because what happened actually with the way diasporas was applied as a term, it also evolved over the years. And the definition has continued to evolve based off of what's happening in the world today. So a lot more focus on migrant communities that are fleeing circumstances related to emergencies or crises, addressing concerns of countries that have to receive migrants. And it's continued to evolve, but I will say the Diaspora Academy strongly endorses the initial definition. So I will share it with you, and if I can do this from memory, I'll be so pleased, which I think I can. So the definition of diasporas that we really apply at the Diaspora Academy is from that conference, and the definition of diasporas is immigrants and their descendants who live outside the country of their birth or ancestry, either on a temporary or permanent basis, yet still maintain material and effective ties to their country of origin. Okay, I know that's a mouthful, but let's just pause for a minute. We're talking about a group of people who live outside of their country of birth or ancestry, and they're living outside either temporarily or on a permanent basis. And while they're out there on a temporary or permanent basis, they're maintaining material and affective ties to their country of origin. And so what does that really mean? Think of it this way. You might be an immigrant who left home to go to school in a different country, and you maintain ties to your homeland in the form of calls, visits, family, relatives coming to see you. You may be someone who's been gainfully employed in a different country and you've had to leave your country for work, but you maintain ties by assuming that you will return when your employment is up, by keeping your apartment or your home in your homeland, calling regularly to your people in your homeland, making trips. Or you could even be someone who was not born in your country of origin, but it is an ancestral homeland for you. And you may be someone who's a descendant of migrants, and every summer you go back to the homeland for a visit. There are countries that really invite their diasporas to get to know them because they know that not everyone abroad was born in the country, that they are actually descendants. And this, I think, hits everyone the most. If you look at your own life, you look at your family history, there is a point for many of us where we're able to identify an ancestor in their departure from the ancestral homeland. This is not true for all of us because undoubtedly a significant part of the world has also endured the most horrific levels of kidnapping, enslavement, being taken, uprooted forcibly from their homes and being cut off. And so part of the diaspora journey is that journey to maintain material and affective ties or establish material and affective ties. So the idea here is the Irish American community, generations in the United States, they keep their ties in the form of culture, in the form of exchange programs, in the form of traditions, religion, community centers. Who hasn't seen a pub before, right? Or who hasn't drank a Guinness? Food is most often one of the first symbols and means of which diasporas maintain ties is by keeping cultures and traditions alive. So I want you to think of your own journey and think about where your ancestral heritage and lineage became diasporic in some way. And maybe they haven't, maybe you don't know, but there is a way to find out. And I think for many of us, while the option may present itself, not everyone chooses to explore their diasporic selves. It's just important for everyone to recognize that the diaspora experience isn't limited to the immigrant or someone who is a child of immigrants, and that it can actually extend across multiple generations. What's important is that they're maintaining material and affective ties. I want you to think about material and affective ties. This is something I go into quite a lot in my courses, and I don't want to get into it too much right now, but think of all the ways that you either have maintained ties with your homeland, whether you were born there or not, or what you've done to develop ties. Maybe you've learned the traditional language as an adult. Maybe you've taken the first trip to the homeland after years of your family not being able to go back home. These are examples of maintaining material and affective ties. But also, it could be anything from sending money through remittances or calling your relatives and chatting with them on WhatsApp. It can be really anything, but how are you creating ties to your ancestral homeland? So I want you to think of this when you look at anybody really you're sitting with and look at their story and think of where did their journey have a diasporic existence? Is it with the person you're sitting with now? Is it with their ancestors? Is it with their children? It's important to remember that the diaspora experience is not limited to a particular community, a particular race, a particular part of the world, a particular continent. As a member of the African diaspora, I always get excited about this work as an African diaspora, but I know that there is a lot of similarity across diaspora experiences. Just like we always say diasporas are not a monolith, the diaspora experience is not the same for everyone. It is an individual, very private experience. And really, to be a member of a diaspora, it's really a process of self-identification. You have to be willing to get there yourself and identify yourself. I try not to assume anything of people, but it's important for you, if you are interested in understanding the diaspora space, that number one, this is a very personal journey of your own. Even if you don't identify as being a member of a particular diaspora or a diaspora that you're interested in, understand that it is a personal journey. Diasporas are not all the same because the circumstances that people leave home, the stories that they've inherited, the memories that have been preserved vary depending on when you left the country or your relationship with the country, your relationship with the new country you've moved to. And so diaspora journeys and experiences are extremely fluid. But one thing is for certain, what ties diasporas together is their desire to maintain material and effective ties to the homeland. And for many diasporas who have not yet done it, the question becomes, how do I create material and effective ties? And that's what I love unpacking with everyone. The second thing is, the diaspora experience isn't limited to a particular generation. So just like I said, it's not limited to immigrants. There's a second generation lens. This is why we called the podcast That Second Gen Life with Samhar, because that middle community, the people that are in between in the truest sense of bilingual, bicultural, bicoastal, bicontinental, puts you in a position to really have some strong skills, transferable skills in the workplace, in the community, in life. And it's important for second gens to really take hold of that. But for those of you that are listening that are third, fourth, fifth, multi-generational, you also are included in this conversation around the diaspora experience, because for multi-generationals, there are so many lessons to be gleaned around best practices of how you preserve culture, how you preserve heritage, how you amplify our stories, how you tell the history. And I think often with the African diaspora especially, being that it's been a narrative that has existed through centuries and centuries of hardship, centuries of attempts to erase our history. Candidly, I'm going to be candid with all of you on this show. There are so many lessons in how people of African descent globally have preserved their heritage and culture. So it's important for you, if you're a listener that identifies as a member of the African diaspora, to take heart with the fact that what can we learn about different diasporas around the world working to preserve heritage? It's in food, it's in culture, it's in music, it's in dress, it's in language, it's in hairstyle, in fashion, it's in customs. So as you look at the world as you know it today, you would be very remiss to, you would be very, so as you look at cultures around the world today, you should remember in the back of your mind that this all really did come from very similar places, yours most likely, whether you're African or not, or Arab or Asian, however you identify. The roots are all very similar in the attempts that are made to preserve history and culture. I also think that diasporas are not only people and communities that are focused on maintaining material and effective ties, but building ties and new pathways. That's what I think is one of the diaspora's greatest superpowers, as I like to talk about, is that we are innovative and we are creative. We see needs, we're able to respond, we are extremely entrepreneurial, just by the sheer nature of being in between and seeing gaps and opportunities that others may not. Because your landscape as a member of a diaspora, your lens and your horizon are much larger. And it's important for you to be able to capture that and communicate that to partners. Now, if you're not a member of a particular diaspora and you're working with them, or if you're just interested in this topic and you don't know if you really want to go down this route, I want you to understand that the diaspora experience is really like an umbrella. It is an umbrella term that applies to different people of all walks of life who identify with a history or a memory of migration. It might be a direct memory of having to flee under the most dire circumstances, or leaving because of wonderful opportunity, like family and love and jobs and opportunities and education. Those are the reasons people leave, right? People migrate in the best case for opportunities, because no one ever wants to leave home. But if you have to leave home, you want it to be for the right reasons. And so as you uncover this diaspora space, remember to not stop there, to think of what is the power of second and multi-generational diasporas. How do we work across generations? Because the most effective diaspora engagements and diaspora projects the diaspora campaigns, the diaspora organizations are when they are intergenerational and when across generations we're able to see each other. Okay, so this isn't a race to see who's representing the diaspora the best. This is a reminder that there's enough room for all of us as members of diasporas. Okay, so there are other elements out of our control, like what the ancestral homeland or the adopted homeland may choose to do with different diaspora communities, whether they're first-generation immigrants or multi-generational descendants, whether they are recognized as diasporas in the homeland. Those things are a little more out of our control as individuals, but there are avenues for shaping that. Lastly, if you have ever been struggling with figuring out, okay, I know I'm a member of a diaspora, but I feel a little bit of this and a little bit of that, I want you to know that being in the diaspora is that process of self-identification, and it's your journey to define. And that hyphenated experience you're probably having, the one that is both of the ancestral homeland and the country you live in this case where I live in the United States, embracing this hyphenated reality of being an Eritrean American, it's a long journey to get there and fully claim it. But the truth is that it's an undeniable part of me that I have been born and raised in the United States. I have rights and privileges as everyone else does here, as a human being, first and foremost, as a citizen, as a tax-paying resident. However you can relate, the hyphenated experience is really valid. And I want you as a diaspora listener to not feel compelled to only pick one side or the other, okay? So this is my little overview of the diaspora experience and what does diaspora mean. Now, if you're interested in learning more or you want to do a deeper dive, we are going to do a deeper dive for our founding member listeners. If you are subscribed to this podcast as a founding member, I'm doing workshops for you as well as AMAs, so you can just ask me anything about all these things, and you will see that course or that workshop offering shortly. I'm very excited. If you want to just have more interactions around this question on the diasporas, hit me up, let me know. Visit our website, it's thediasporaacademy.com. We have a section on courses. You can find starter courses, and then you can find our Diaspora Leadership Program, which is a 3-week, 6-session course. It's 6 sessions done over 3 weeks. So in this case, we just wrapped up our 3rd cohort not too long ago, and it was 3 Tuesdays. We sat from 12 to 2 p.m. We covered 6 modules. So we'll probably take the same format when the course is offered again later this year. But you can sign up and get on the waiting list now. And also, if you want something more individual, we have that as well, okay? So the point is, you don't have to stop at just listening here. If you feel like you have a diaspora initiative or question or desire, we can support you. I can support you for sure. Lastly, let me know what your diaspora experience has been like. I want to hear from you. So if you've gotten to the point of unpacking your diaspora journey, tell me, how was that for you? And what did you do to come to where you are now? What has being in the diaspora meant to you? These are wonderful insights that I could really love to hear from and I could really learn from. So check out our next episode. It'll be dropping soon. Make sure you subscribe because not all of these episodes are going to be free. We do have specific subjects that are going to be relevant for first, second, and multi-gen diaspora listeners and friends of diasporas. So don't forget to subscribe for more episodes. Also exclusive workshops and AMAs for the founding members, and sign up for our next Diaspora Leadership Program. I can't wait to hear from you. I hope you're all well. Stay safe. Keep your minds strong. Keep your hearts healthy and happy. And remember, you are much more powerful than you know. All right, everyone. See you soon. Bye-bye.